Welcome to the Tools in the Shed Greatest Hits Holiday Compilation Series. This week, we're looking at the news items that caught your attention and got us talking. Hope you enjoy it.
Yes, thank you.
And Chesto, it's super timely that you're with us because
Yes.
our main topic of discussion today is going to be a vehicle. It goes on the land. It cruises.
Yes.
It's been a big part of the Australian landscape for some
It
time.
has, yeah.
And there's some news.
It is virtually an Australian-owned vehicle, isn't it? You know, I mean, it's big around the world as well, of course, but we treat it as one of our own. The Land
Now that
Cruiser,
we don't have a Falcon or Commodore, it is the nameplate.
That's right.
Yeah,
Now, the
yeah.
vehicle, of course, is the Toyota Land Cruiser, and some news broke this week about the new one, the Land Cruiser 300 series. Now, full credit where credit is due. This story broke in a Japanese publication called Best Car Web Japan.
This Car Web Japan. Now, is it an online?
It's my understanding there's actually a magazine.
There's
with
physical
an online,
magazine
with
as well.
an online component.
It's so strange because in Japan there are still so many magazines.
Yeah,
Anyway,
absolutely.
yep.
And so, look, the mail they've got, and it does seem to be pretty on the money. They have a lot of detail. Is that we can expect a new Land Cruiser 300 series to arrive in August 2020.
Yeah.
Arrive or be revealed?
Well, be revealed,
Yeah.
I should say. Be revealed in August 2020. But to be honest with you, given the life expectancy of the outgoing car that's been 12 years, I want to say.
It'll be knocking on the door of 3 years in September.
3 years
Since
in terms
production
of its
started.
current
Sorry,
form.
13, did I say 3
You
years?
said
13. Yeah.
13, sorry, add 10 to that.
Right.
It'll be 13 years this September since the 200 series started production.
Okay, so
Amazing.
given that, I would assume that they're not going to reveal the car and then say, right, we'll see you in 24 months. I think they'll say, okay, you kind of have it now. You've
I hope so.
had the last one. Now, big news, of course, in Australia there has already been big news, which we reported on last year, and that is the fact that the V8 petrol engine
Gone. Yep.
reverting to diesel. Now, Toyota justifies that decision by saying, look, 5% of people bought the petrol V8. I know that it's a great engine to have. It sounds cool, and we feel like we should have one, but the reality is nobody was
And
buying.
I mean, when all said and done, it wasn't a super high power V8
No,
either. And in a bus that big,
exactly.
it wasn't a powerhouse.
And people like what the diesel could offer in terms of torque.
And it also follows them dropping the Petrol V6 from the Hilux range earlier
Yes.
as well. You know, if people aren't buying it, why sell it?
No, that's right. And they just brought, side topic, they just brought the petrol V8 back in the GR Sport international markets.
Hilux.
Hilux, yeah.
V6.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, did I say
Yes.
V8? V6, sorry, petrol V6.
Wow.
What
Yeah.
is it with you guys?
Sorry.
Did I say 3? No, 13. Did I say V8?
What
no,
time is it?
V6.
Stand by for next
God,
week's
should-
retractions.
Should not have had beers with lunch. That's
Is your
my
name
mistake.
Andrew or Anton?
Anyway.
Now or Millie?
Millie, yeah.
So
Anyway.
the mail is then that it's going to the engine of choice, at least initially, will instead be a 3.6 litre V6 hybrid engine powering that car from the Lexus family. Now, there are a few conflicting reports at the moment. Best Car Web has it as just a V6 hybrid. That's the information they have at the moment. Plenty of other rumours circulating and quite good mail that it's going to be a twin turbo V6 hybrid.
Yeah.
So then doing a little bit more digging, Lexus has both of those engines on offer at the moment. It has a naturally aspirated V6 hybrid, which will produce 220 kilowatts and 350 newton meters, but that's before you take the electric motor into consideration,
Yeah.
which adds 132 kilowatts and 300 newton meters.
Well-
Now, obviously, you can't just combine those numbers together for a total output.
But it's still a pretty solid
But
output.
it's more solid than it sounds on paper.
Yep.
They also have the twin turbo V6, good for 310 kilowatts and 600 newton meters. Now, the sort of mail bubbling around the interwebs at the moment is that there's going to be some sort of combination of those two factors. So a hybrid twin turbo V6 engine.
Or 2 V6s.
And
Could be. They could just join it at the crank.
Yeah.
One
Make
at the
a
front,
V12.
one at the rear.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
we've seen such design for purpose measures between the current 70 series and 200 series, in that they've both got the 4.5 litre V8, but the 70 only gets a single turbo. So perhaps it's a single turbo.
And you have to
Hybrid
think too
V6.
that you could, by adding the hybrid element, you could increase the torque. By adding the turbo element, you could increase the power, and you'd end up with a V6 engine that.
And even though it's a pretty big ticket item, the economy, the fuel efficiency would start to make a little more sense in such a big
absolutely.
vehicle.
And can I just clarify something here that I'm sure everyone's going, oh, but you can't just have a hybrid in the Land Cruiser. This,
Mel
I think,
knows
is
his
just the
audience,
headline
honestly.
engine.
Yeah.
There is a very, very strong chance we'll also see a proper turbo diesel.
Yeah, look, that's
for
definitely
Australia.
not ruled out either.
Yeah.
So there are some publications are suggesting it'll be a one engine job. I'm not convinced that'll be the case, but rest assured that basically the hybrid's not a surprise. Toyota's been saying for quite a long time, sort of nudge, nudge, wink, wink. It will be fit for purpose. Don't worry, etc., etc. But the sort of unwritten part there was it's going to be a hybrid.
Because the two things for me that stand out are hybrid, and Toyota has been so strident in terms of that is where we're heading across the range.
Absolutely.
And the TNGA platform that
Yes.
it sits on, how scalable that is. That here it goes sitting under an enormous vehicle like this
But
one.
it's not just scalable. So the report says TNGA.
It's a ladder frame version of the TNGA platform.
So TNGA has not been paired with ladder frame yet, and that
No.
sounds like you know, saying a Yaris on a Hilux chassis.
I mean, you tend to think of it as a piece of metal shaped. It's a platform. It's a way of underpinning a car. Really, it's a concept.
And I take this to mean that TNGA, and I think they've said this from the word go, that TNGA isn't about shared components. It's a shared philosophy.
That's
Exactly.
Right.
In
That's
the
right.
same way that Skyactiv with the Mazda MX-5 is still on a Skyactiv platform that the Mazda 3 has and the Mazda 2 has, even though the MX-5 is longitudinal rear-wheel drive. There's elements that have been skewed,
Exactly.
but it follows the same philosophy, but in that format.
Yeah, exactly.
So it'd be very interesting to see a TNGA ladder frame.
So,
Sure would.
A few more little bits and bobs for you. So these guys have done a lot of digging here and have a lot of information, so bear with me. So in terms of your dimensions, it's going to be basically 4.9 metres in length, 1.9 metres in width, 1.8 metres in height. Add a couple of millimetre either side there to make it up. And it'll ride on a 2,850 millimetre wheelbase. Now,
We know the wheelbase.
8 seats or 5 seats, 2 rows or 3 rows, and tyre sizes that roll from 17 to 20 inch. So they've got a lot of data there, a lot of information.
Someone knows something.
So yeah, exactly.
I didn't realise we knew the wheelbase. Is the
You
wheelbase longer?
have pressed the MAL
59.
wheelbase button.
Yes,
all right?
that's right,
Once you
yeah.
do that,
50 mil?
there's
Yeah,
no turning back.
I believe so, yeah.
Oh, okay. Because that's been my big question mark with 300. No, in honesty,
Oh no, I trust you.
My understanding is they kept basically the same wheelbase between 100 series and 200 series to maintain its ramp over angle and off-road ability.
I see.
But it's meant for a rather small back seat in the 200.
Okay.
So
But remember, all I would say on the new Land Cruisers, and there has been so much sort of thirst for information on this car for a long time, and this story has proven no difference. It's gone bananas. Almost every website in the world, every outlet in the world has now covered it with sort of rabid excitement. But Toyota has said from the very beginning that they promise it'll be fit for purpose. It won't disappoint. It'll fulfill the promise of Land Cruiser. And to me, it sounds like it might be a little different, but it will still fulfill that promise.
But for Toyota, this is Toyota's MX-5.
Yeah.
Mazda spent way more money than, would make financial sense on
Just
the
on
MX-5.
that model stream.
Yeah. Toyota's the same.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think they're going to get it wrong.
Oh no,
Their global presence has been built on this nameplate.
they'll obviously do a GR version and go full performance
that
with
will
it
be
too,
my
Chester.
that'll be my next question. Don't you worry about
You
that.
know exactly where you hear about that first.
All right. Well,
CarsGuide.com
that is
/news.
That is fantastic. I think.
All right. Well, look, thanks to everyone who came at us with all that feedback. It was terrific. Thank you very much. And we'll move on to our main subject area, which is Hilux and Hilux 2021, the vehicle of next year. It's within reaching distance.
Yes.
And Chester, you've researched and written a story for us during the week. And fill us in on the latest. What's been happening?
Yeah, so look, we've covered this car a lot for obvious reasons. Best-selling car in Australia, always a perennial favourite, super important car for Toyota, and particularly for Toyota in Australia. So new one's coming, we know that. And this week, we got our first peek at some images of that car, what it should look like. They were released by a website called Miele Motors, which is a vehicle wholesaler to Asia and Africa.
And as I said earlier, a maker of very high quality kitchen appliances.
Correct.
And Mal, what was the other one?
Vacuum cleaners.
Vacuum cleaners.
Vacuum
That's
cleaners.
right.
But I think this might be a separate arm to that company.
Okay.
But anyway, it does add some credibility to these images. These are the guys that will be selling it in Asia and Africa. So the presumption is that they would have had a pretty good look at this vehicle that's about to launch. And I guess first and most important, I'm sure it's popped up in the background now, I actually think it looks really good. It gives the Hilux a kind of Tacoma styling at the front end. It adds a bit of toughness to it, which is never a bad thing. Yeah. But it doesn't change the sort of overall dimensions or concept or anything. It's just if you're giving a vehicle a tickle, it's a really good way to do it.
Sure.
Looking at the photos, there doesn't seem to be any sheet metal changes. All we're looking at is a new grille, front fascia, and headlights.
Yeah, so new LED headlights at the front and at the rear, new 17 and 18 alloy wheel choices, new DRLs design, and a new front end. I mean, that's basically the holus bolus.
Right.
The wheels in the photo though, the renderings we've seen show the track widened by at least 3 or 4 inches. That's not going to happen.
Exactly.
No.
Unless they actually give us the Hilux Raptor we've all been wanting.
Correct.
But just visualize it with the standard track, just with that nose, and that's.
I don't know about you guys, but I've spoken to numerous, car designers, and they always use those earlier renderings as a way to push the envelope. Like they'll teach the dog to jump this high and then hope that they get to this height. I'll put these massive rims on, and then we'll get the size we want, and I'll widen the track that much, and maybe we'll get what we're actually after.
Look like really compromising.
This only represents the mid-cycle facelift for the Hilux.
Yeah.
We'll be seeing this Hilux for a fair few more years yet.
Correct.
And this is a decent update to it, but it'll be the same car from, the radiator support panel backwards.
Which leads to the question, Chesto, in terms of what's going to be under the bonnet.
Yes. So, while the exterior changes are not massive, but significant in the way they style the car, far more significant is some of the other tickling that's been going on. I'll start in the cabin. You'll finally get Apple CarPlay and Android Auto in a Hilux, which is, frankly, unbelievable that it's taken this long to arrive, but it will arrive with this one. And under the bonnet, it's the same engine, but it's been fiddled. And we're expecting the outputs to increase by about 20 kilowatts and 20 newton meters. Now, I know they don't sound like huge numbers, but the idea there is that we'll put it just about on par with the Ford Ranger, which is its biggest rival. Not the 500 newton meter engine, the larger but lower capacity engine. So it should be roughly 150 kilowatts, 470 newton meters, which is enough grunt. Now, the bad news, we were expecting it to arrive in Australia in July, but the factory where it and the Fortuna are both being produced is currently still closed due to corona craziness. So the production date has reportedly been pushed back to May 9, which is a month later, which, if all goes according to plan, should push its arrival in Australia by a month. But again, so much of that is how long's a piece of string at the moment. It's just a plan to reopen. It hasn't actually done it yet. So it will be delayed, but it will be here this year, barring, some unforeseen disaster.
And yes, Toyota will be calling it the 2021, even though it will arrive this year. It's a 2021 model year car.
Yeah, okay.
Correct. So that's about a wrap. Unfortunately, we don't know pricing and spec yet, but it's a hugely competitive space. Don't expect the pricing to increase by too much, if at all. Expect it from around August with some pretty critical updates.
Mr. Flynn, you have a question.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Cleary. Can I just point out, I can remember the first time we clapped eyes on the most recent Land Cruiser 200 series update, and it came to us via similar renderings that what we're seeing here with the Hilux. And I was really worried. I thought they'd broken the Land Cruiser, and it wasn't a particularly good-looking car before that. But now I think the current 200 looks pretty good.
Yeah.
Now,
all right.
The reason why I'm saying this is that looking at these renderings now and to actually think, wow, that looks good, bodes well for the real thing. Even though I'm criticising the track we're seeing in the images. But
all right.
Yeah.
So the Land Cruiser 200. It needed to age for you. It needed to have a bit of time in market, and it came good, as it were.
No, I think it was merely just seeing it in the flesh. This comes. This also highlights why manufacturers hate leaked images. They want us to show the car in the ideal light and the realistic way that we will see them on the road.
Yeah, right.
And
So
some obscure rendering doesn't necessarily do that.
So just to clarify, the first Land Cruiser 200 you saw, it wasn't broken. It was okay.
It was on the back of a tow truck.
That's
right. When I saw it in the flesh, I thought, it's not broken. There you go.
Okay. I get it. All right. Very good. Go on, Chester.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to just say I was speaking to someone at Toyota about that very issue the other day, and they were saying the curse of having, and it's a feeling shared by Land Rover and the Defender, the curse of having a kind of iconic vehicle in the lineup is that every time you launch a new one, the first reaction is, well, you've ruined it. And then once that gets in the market for a while, they get used to it. That becomes a new iconic status. Then you launch another one, and they say, well, you've ruined the one that we thought you originally ruined. So, it's just one of those circles.
One exception to that, though, is the 996 Porsche. I don't think anyone thinks the broken egg headlights on the 996 Porsche look good even today.
And market values would very much reflect that now. There are some bargains to be had out there in 996, 911s, that's for sure.
Correct.
All right. But first of all, we're going to cut to the chase and the main topic of conversation for this week's podcast, which is an Andrew Chesterton story through the week, which pulls a few threads together in terms of he's been digging around and turning up a lot of little bits and pieces that add up to a pretty clear picture of when the much anticipated LC300 is going to arrive and some basic details about its spec. And this is a big deal, Crafty. It's kind of in your part of the world. The LC200's been with us for a while, but we're going to seemingly wave farewell to favourites like the V8 diesel engine, and other power plants will be forthcoming. What's your feeling in terms of what this vehicle has to do to maintain the Land Cruiser mainstream legacy?
It's it's like it's on the level of the Defender, the latest Defender, in that it's upset a lot of people. There are also a lot of people that are quite philosophical about it and say, look, that's progress. You've just got to move with it. And I'll still love the Land Cruiser and I'll still love the brand and that sort of thing. And there's a few other people that don't care about it really. Whatever, come see, come saw. I think it's a pretty big deal, and we did sort of flag this ages ago in news yarns, and we flagged it in our videos. It's your last chance to get into a V8 cruiser and that sort of thing.
Yep.
The new engine is, Chesto's been digging around, as you said. It's a 3.3 litre V6.
Yeah.
More power and torque according to Toyota, but I mean, we'll only find out that sort of stuff closer to the sort of release date next year, I believe.
And that's part of it, by the way. Sorry to just drop in there, but Chesto's latest mail out of Japan is in the domestic market. It'll be April 2021. Dealers have been told to be prepared and ready to receive an order, stock and all that kind of stuff, which would potentially mean about a September or so arrival here next year.
For here, but bearing in mind sort of supply chain issues and whatever else that are sort of fallouts from COVID times. With technology as it is, I can't see a drop to a V6 being a great, and especially when they're saying it's more power and torque. I can't see it being an issue other than in sort of hearts and minds of traditionalists.
Yeah.
And I got to admit, I'm a little bit sad to see the V8 go. Obviously, with Toyota tax on second-hand vehicles as it is, Toyota tax being the informal resale value is always so high. I think V8 Land Cruisers will be at a premium, obviously, to be able to snap one of those up that's in good nick as a second-hand vehicle will be a tough ask. But it's the future, JC. And that's the way things go. And I mean, smaller capacity engines producing more power and torque. They're not. That's not a big surprise in this day and age.
I suppose the thing that occurs to me, I don't know what your thoughts are, Richard, but to me, a smaller capacity engine producing more power and torque via whatever means, forced induction, is the way it's done. That to me brings up issues of stress over the longer period. That larger capacity naturally aspirated engines are typically less stressed, slightly lower compression, all of that stuff. And reliability and longevity has been such a hallmark of the Land Cruiser that I can understand in people's minds might not be a thrilling prospect.
So especially when they're sorry, Richard, I'm going to talk over you.
No, you go.
Because I'm more senior by about 40 years, but
that makes you about 100, 180. You are a vampire.
In the shade, yes.
Yeah, collectively we've got 400 years here under our belt,
and about 359 years just from me alone. So yeah, and I mean, obviously they are huge recreational towers. You see them all the time with big boats, horse floats, trailers, everything else on the back, and certainly that is a valid concern. And I mean, that will only be evidenced further down the track when we see, things perhaps coming to the fore later on when people are having strife. Well, hopefully not. But
The oddball thing is that, for mine, the whole TNGA platform architecture that Toyota's been putting under everything from Supra to Yaris and on it goes. This new Land Cruiser will allegedly have a TNGA, new generation platform, but it's still body on frame. It's a ladder type setup. So I don't. It seems the whole concept of this TNGA is quite elastic in terms of where it goes. And there's also potentially a diesel hybrid that might be part of the whole makeup, which is another kind of culture shock for traditionalists to try and deal with.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But they've shown that they can do a good hybrid in the RAV. That's a great driving vehicle.
Yeah.
And that platform has proven pretty appealing to most everyone. But we'll see, I guess. I mean, you got to rattle the cage with these sort of things. I mean, this is an iconic vehicle. It's a big flagship vehicle. It sets the tone quite often for not only the brand itself or its stablemates of SUVs, four-wheel drives, but for the market, for the entire market. And as we all know, this is a massive market now. Four-wheel drives, off-roaders, utes, all these sort of things that have work and play sort of appeal. It'll be interesting to see. Yeah, they've always got to rattle the cage. A lot of people are going to be upset. A lot of people are going to be indifferent. A lot of people are going to be happy. So,
yeah,
we'll see.
Well, I mean, it's not Toyota's first rodeo, is it? They've been around for a while, and I suppose they know their customer base globally pretty well. But this one, Chesto again has unearthed some dimensional details. It's going to be bigger in almost every key dimension, he says. And I don't know about you guys, but when I'm sat next to a Land Cruiser in anything other than another big SUV, it is a pretty big beast. So to make it even larger seems like another pretty courageous gambit. What do you make of that, Richard? I mean, when you're strapping your little boy in, it's a large vehicle.
I've spent years of my life falling out of Land Cruisers because we were a bit of a Land Cruiser family, and not only that, we're a bit of a hot rod family. So what we would do is we would take
drop an LS1 into the Land Cruiser.
Well, we're a 350 Chev in those days. So we would actually put 350 Chevs in them, a 350 turbo transmission. We'd jack them up and we'd put like balloon tires on it.
9-inch rear end, the whole bit.
So I spent years falling out of Land Cruisers, but what I was going to say, and look, there's nothing bigger than a Land Cruiser on the road, really, unless you're talking about patrols and the equivalents like that. But the thing is that there are a lot of traditionalists, but Toyota is famous for these really, really long model lives. I think this 200 series current one came out in 2007, which is that's 13 years. It's a long time, but not in Toyota terms. Like, you see how long, it's taken for the 86 to get updates and stuff like that. RAV4 as well. So they're famous for, having these long model lives, which is really good for resale value. It means that if you're selling the current one, it's the same as the one which came out in 2015 and 14 and 10. And look, this resistance that you get to new models, we see it all the time. And I remember when the current Land Rover Discovery came out, and everybody was complaining about the shape, and it was losing its boxiness. And even journos, we went to motor shows overseas, and we spoke to the designers, and we were like, "What are you doing?" But in a lot of ways, the car manufacturers now really do have their fingers on the pulse. They know their customers very well.
Sure.
And they know that there might be a bit of resistance, but they also know that from the last model that they brought out, eventually they'll love it as well.
Yeah.
And I think the same situation with this 300 series.
I imagine most people like to think of themselves as very flexible and very open-minded and open to change until something happens and your gut instinct takes over and you go, oh, I don't know about that. I'm not 100% sure, and this is probably a classic case in point.
People don't like change, especially when it's to their favourite car. And the Land Cruiser in Australia really is a favourite car. The hybrid, I think, scares the willies out of everybody. The potential of a diesel hybrid in the Land Cruiser. the traditionalists I've spoken to on, talkback radio, have declared
That's your own show too, isn't it, Richard?
It's just called Talkback Radio. It's like a CB version. We just do it over the ham.
It's just called Richard Hard Talk. Hard Talk with Richard Berry.
UHF 83.
Talkback with Dick, I thought it was called.
That's right.
Dick
That's
Berry.
right.
Yeah.
It is Dick Berry. Tune in, tune out.
Tune in, drop out.
That's right. That's very resistant out there to a hybrid Land Cruiser. And it's all about concerns about its capability. Toyota's concerned about how people are going to feel about this. But we've heard, the Vice President of Toyota Australia Marketing, Sean Hanley, say that in no way will we ever bring out a Land Cruiser where the capability will be compromised.
Yeah.
And to your point, Crafty and JC, if anybody can do a hybrid, it's Toyota. They've been doing them now for 20 years, and they've mastered it. So if there's anyone that I really trust to do a hybrid Land Cruiser properly, it's definitely Toyota.
Well, I suppose the other thing is there'll be some changes that would be hard to be negative about, in that it will be updated in terms of, presumably, it's electronic architecture. So things like multimedia will be vastly improved. Yep. Safety will be much improved. The safety sense package will presumably wrap in AEB, and you'll have your Apple CarPlay and your Android Auto and all that stuff. It's going to be a little bit more expensive, allegedly. We've become spoiled, I suppose, by new models arriving with no change or even a marginal upward shift in the price. But this one, Chesto's guesstimating around $7,000 more. When it ultimately arrives. So there again, you're asking people to pay a bit more, but it looks like there'll be more in it. Quite literally.
It's needed. It needed this technology update for years as well. Like getting into a Land Cruiser today, the current generation, is like getting into one 10 years ago. Really hasn't, although there's been updates along the way which have been fairly significant.
Well, Toyota, as we know, can be guilty of doing the bare minimum to sort of keep people.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it, I think, is the Toyota philosophy. It isn't broke, but they're updating it. And like to the point where it needs a ladder frame chassis. That's really interesting, because Defender went with a monocoque and believed that they could actually still retain that flexibility and integrity for off-roading with a monocoque. But Toyota seems to think that the ladder frame is the way to go, which is obviously going to compromise your ride and your handling a little bit on the road, but will undoubtedly make it formidable off the road.
Yeah.
So and you're still going to have your 5 or 8 seat configuration available. It's going to be able to serve that big family, or that recreational thing. Lots of people in the car. Let's get out there kind of thing as well. That won't change.
Yeah, and there'll be the same, if not more, level variety of variants too. I reckon they'll introduce a few more, maybe sort of upper tier variants and that sort of thing, just to satisfy those with more expensive tastes among us, like Dick Berry.
So what I want to know is the 200 series going to become a instant collector's item? The values are already going up and up and up and up.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Last of the V8s.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah,
well, you see, even now with second-hand vehicles, like the prices of them, again, because of the fallout of COVID times. Yeah, I reckon, geez, you'd want to start saving your pennies, Richard, for a V8 Cruiser, second-hander.
Yeah.
Or probably with 500,000 Ks on. Yeah, I'll just
buy a new one, put an LS engine in it. That's what my dad would do.
500,000 Ks, it's just run in, really.
That's just run in,
It's just getting to the sweet spot.
It's just warmed it up. Yeah.
Absolutely. And look, like what you're mentioning earlier about how V6s and, smaller capacity engines still have the same outputs, but you've got to expect a bit of stress.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. V8s, there's a saying that V8s, tick through the miles really slowly, and that is because they can sit on 110. They're only doing about 1,000 RPM. So the miles tick over on them really slowly, whereas when you're in a V6 or smaller capacity engines, they have to work really, really hard to tow and do the same thing.
To do the same job.
V8s just don't even seem to break a sweat over.
Yeah. So, we've done some massive towing comparisons with the Petrol and the Land Cruiser, the 200. And man, oh man, they're so relaxed and it's just stress free, and they just handle it. And like you say, they just tick along. It's they're great.
I think with towing, you want a draft horse, not a race horse. You know what I mean? You just want something which is strong.
Right. So you're going to be towing a draft horse. So that means. Is that a larger kind of float typically when you've got a draft horse?
Very much so. You need an extended wheelbase with dualies at the back for a draft horse.
A big Clydesdale or
That's right.
I'm a big particular fan of the Shire horse. That's one step up again.
I love a Shire horse.
Your double XL horse is your Shire horse.
Now, unfortunately, I've only got a Shetland pony, so
so to speak.
We are talking about horses, aren't we? But
all right. Well, look, I think we've gone well off track, which is perfect, and we'll leave it there. It'll be great to hear from listeners or viewers in terms of where they stand on this whole thing. Whether they're ready to embrace.
We'll get mail.
Oh yeah.
We will. We will. And it'll be great to get it. Are you ready for this new LC300? Ready to embrace it, or are you bemoaning the fact that we're having to wave goodbye to the LC200? So we will.
Australia, what's your favourite sport?
Football.
Snake?
Pies.
Animal?
Kangaroos.
And what's your favourite car, Australia?
Holden.
Let me see, that's football, meat pies, kangaroos and Holden cars, huh?
Right.
Well, you sure sound like Australia to me.
We are.
Well, then you better tell me again, because I just might forget.
We love football, meat pies, kangaroos and Holden cars. Football, meat pies, kangaroos and Holden cars.
That's football, meat pies, kangaroos and Holden cars.
Football and meat pies, kangaroos and Holden cars.
I think you better tell me again.
We love football, meat pies, kangaroos and Holden cars.
In case you're wondering, this commercial is brought to you by football, meat pies, kangaroos, and Australia's own car.
They go together underneath the southern stars. Football and meat pies, kangaroos and Holden cars.
Makes sense to me.
Hello and welcome to a special edition of Tools in the Shed. There are 4 tools in the shed today because it's quite a momentous day. We're recording this on Monday, the 17th of February, and General Motors has announced the cessation of the Holden brand in this market and in New Zealand. We 4 of us are just fresh from listening in on a press conference that was happening down in Melbourne. We had some of our team actually present at that press conference, so we've got a bit of information. And we thought it appropriate on such a momentous day to mark it with a discussion and try and fill you in on some of the details as we know them, and help people out there that may have questions and point you in the right direction. So really, we heard from 2 people. We heard from the GM International Operations Senior Vice President, Julian Blissett, and we heard from the interim chairman and managing director, Christian Aquilina, and they were there to field questions. And the press conference went all over the place, really. It went from what does this mean in terms of jobs, the dealer network, motorsport with supercars, and all kinds of things that I hadn't thought about. For example, the Colorado Ute is produced in Thailand. What does that mean for that plant? So we've
Corvette.
had some, and the Corvette, which is imminent. So we've had answers to some of those, but there are still some open-ended questions that we've been talking about. So, Matt, you mentioned earlier that there's a pretty handy Q&A link.
Yes.
Whereabouts is that happening?
Yeah, so if you look on the Holden Facebook page, the FAQ they've put up there for people who want to know what Holden is telling its customers or its stakeholders, I guess you could say, what they can expect. The questions range from things like, where can I get my Holden serviced? When will Holden close?
Absolutely.
What's going to happen to the Lang Lang Proving Ground? These are all pertinent questions that they've tried to answer as much as they can up until the actual closure, whenever that
And just
may
to
be.
give everybody listening and watching the kind of statement as it stands, the first paragraph of the press release that Holden has issued, and we've each got a copy here, says the Holden brand will be retired from sales in Australia and New Zealand, and local design and engineering operations will wind down by 2021. So we're reading that obviously as by the end of this year. General Motors announced today Maven and Holden Financial Services operations will also wind down in Australia. So if you're a Holden dealer, all of a sudden your world is starting to, the walls are coming in around you.
Yeah,
That's right.
I think more so than they were before.
Yeah.
That's true. Look, if you're a Holden owner and, you may have just bought, a Holden, they've reassured us as well that for the next 10 years you'll be provided by support from their services departments, which will be relocated. But yeah,
which as we were talking about before, Matt and Richard, is that's okay. You've maybe bought a car recently, and you know that there'll be service and parts support for the next decade. When you go to sell that car, you're probably okay. Then when it's in the used car market, it becomes a real difficult proposition. Unless, of course, there are others that spring up to service what is still a very substantial Holden car park, out there, where there's a will and where there's a dollar. There's a way, I suppose.
absolutely. And anyone like Mal, myself, and JC, and UM4 have old cars. There's really no problem in finding parts for old cars. There's already a lot of Holdens out there, and there's always entrepreneurs and businesses out there that can make bits. So yeah,
We should also note that Holden has been through this process in recent times when they closed the Opel brand in Australia.
Yeah.
So they had to wind up dealerships, assure owners of
And in
parts
fact, Holden dealers were servicing Saabs for a while there as well, weren't they?
Yeah, when Saab rolled itself out of the market.
Yeah.
But I think this, there's obviously an element to this. We've seen this brand transform from what was a really strong, it was the number one. It was where everybody else aimed to be.
that's right.
Over the last 20, 25 years, it's just turned into a brand that it never really was in the past.
Because it was a tariff-protected
That's right.
brand. You know, that Ford and Holden, and to a certain extent Chrysler, carved up the market because they were protected as local manufacturers, and others benefited from that over time. Nissan, Mitsubishi, and, on it goes.
Well, in 2009, Holden sold 50,000 Commodores. In 2019, they sold 5,000.
Yes.
The writing's on the wall there.
Yeah,
plainly.
absolutely.
And I believe it was 11,000 ZB Commodores net
Yes.
between...
Yes, so exactly. And for mine, I think there's been a series of events from 2017 in terms of the plant closing down, and they'd stopped making Holdens in Australia, which meant the brand was all of a sudden hollow. That Holden stood apart because it was an Indigenous Australian brand that built cars here, and that they hung their hat on that very strongly over time. So once that's gone, the soul of the brand departed.
Yeah.
So then you had, all right, well, we're going to keep Commodore, and Holden will still be Holden because we still have Commodore. And then David Butner, ex of Toyota, became the chairman, and it seemed like, right, they're going to give this a real red-hot go. And then he actually decided to depart, which that's never a good thing.
Yeah.
Wasn't there even a famous quote of him saying, the Commodore won't be axed under my watch, or something
I'm
like
not here
that?
to close Holden.
That's right. And he sure wasn't, because the day after he gave his public notice, the Commodore was axed.
That's it.
I was there the day he said, I'm not here to close Holden.
That's right,
And he stood by his word. He
absolutely
left
did.
before the company closed.
Because it's not too big a leap to say that's exactly what he knew was going to happen.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to be the bunny that's in those particular headlights.
Yeah.
I'm out of here.
He would have been called to Detroit, and he would have been said, this is the message you've got to give, and he would have said, I made a promise that I wouldn't do that.
And this is coming. This announcement today is coming just a few months after the brand repositioned itself, or put out that it wanted to reposition itself as a Ute and SUV focused brand, because of the Astra and Commodore. Also known as the Insignia, being basically not really available to them anymore because it's now under a different
PSA.
ownership.
So Mal came up with this during the press conference, and we realised it. Commodore wasn't axed at the same time as the brand was axed.
Yeah.
So as Mal pointed out, this was an indication that maybe they were going to try and give it a go.
Because it would, if you think about the PR and all the activities, it would be so easy to just go Commodore end, Holden end in one go, one message.
Yes.
But they've happened, 2 months apart.
Well, I think all of us listening in on the press conference believed that the people speaking on Holden's behalf were being very genuine and, in fact, quite personal and heartfelt. And when they said, it seemed like a platitude when they said, every avenue was exhausted, we tried every different strategy. I actually got the impression that that was genuinely what they had done.
Yeah.
That it felt like they'd tried to move these pieces around and make it work in some way, and just ultimately hadn't been able to. It was a red hot go. They did give it a red hot go, but it didn't work out.
I guess what we've got to be completely clear, though, that the reason why Holden is closing down is not really because it's a Holden thing. It was a General Motors decision that they weren't going to be making their cars in a right-hand drive
Correct.
format anymore.
Good point.
And we've
Great
got to
point.
acknowledge that right-hand drive vehicles represent a tiny proportion of the world's
That's it.
vehicles.
And as we were saying before, we've watched what's happened with General Motors in other markets, developing markets, for instance, in South Africa and India. And obviously they've pulled out of those markets. They pulled out of Europe.
Yes.
And that was the moment when I went, oh, geez, it's not long.
No. No.
And now it's finally happened in Australia and Thailand, where they're building the Colorado and Trailblazer.
Yeah.
And it's just a rationalisation of resources and a look forward from General Motors at where the car market is actually going. And, as we've said in the past, electric cars or the future of the car might not require a steering wheel be left or right. It could be middle. It could be non-existent. So,
Yep, that's
right
true.
now,
This
Right
is
now?
it. But we've just fallen probably 10 or 15 years short of right-hand drive and left-hand drive
Being
not
an issue.
being important anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, I suppose so. But I mean, the reason we're all in this room and the reason why people are listening or watching is because it's been a bit like, an elderly relative that has been unwell for some time. You've known exactly what's coming, but it doesn't make it any less shocking when it finally does. So today is a big day.
I think I've written down here, I'm not surprised, but I'm shocked.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, that's right. Well, that sums up your life. Really.
It does. Every single day, I'm not surprised, but I'm shocked.
Yeah.
so am I, Richard.
Yeah.
but I think all of us, you're right, Richard. I think all of us do feel a little bit hollow
Yeah.
after this. It was the same thing when we found out about local manufacturing. I think everybody in the country who had any connection to Holden or Ford or Toyota at that time would have felt the same way. The same thing with Mitsubishi all those years ago.
Yep.
So, it has a widespread impact on a bunch of different people and different stakeholders, and also, flow-on effect in economies as well. So there's a big impact here.
Absolutely.
And it goes so far beyond the old football meat pies, meat pies, kangaroos, and Holden cars analogy.
It does.
Holden's part of our national fabric. For a long time, Holdens were sold as Holdens. The idea of a Holden model really only started to happen with the Tirana and the Commodore.
Yeah.
You look back at the sales data, it wasn't that long ago where they were just recorded as Holdens.
But you know that football meat pies came from a Chevrolet ad.
Yeah.
Which was
also
baseball,
used
hot
in
dogs.
South Africa.
Baseball, hot
They had a
dogs,
South African
something or other in
version as
Chevrolet.
Was it? Pie, I think, the American one. But it was everywhere. But so that was just a marketing slogan. But
it sort of speaks to Holden's role within GM that it just became, an echo of something that had been done elsewhere.
That long ago as well.
I thought it was nice. Ford Australia put out a tweet in response to the news.
Saying sucked in?
No, not this time. Not this time.
You get more characters than on Twitter.
They were
You do
more,
now, don't you?
Yeah, more considerate than that this time around. All of us here at Ford Australia are saddened to hear the news that Holden will cease operations. Holden is an iconic brand that holds a special place in the heart of many Australians and has done so much to shape the Australian automotive industry and country. Its vehicles have been worthy competitors both on road and on the racetrack. To our friends at Holden, thank you for keeping us on our toes and inspiring us to keep aiming higher. We will miss you.
Wow, that's a great
Which
message,
is a really
isn't it?
beautiful
That's a great
sentiment, I think.
Absolutely.
And look, we shouldn't forget, I'm thinking
an
of
organisation.
Wax 333. This is New Zealand as well.
Yes,
Yeah.
it is.
Holden and Ford have been just as important over there, I'd argue, as they have been here.
Well, 31 dealerships in New Zealand, 180 something in Australia.
185.
185. So
Mel
it's
knows these stats. They're just at his mental fingertips
Because I
the whole time.
just listened to the press
Oh, right.
conference.
Mel knows how
That
many
too.
staff each of the dealerships has.
How many
Mel.
do they have, Mel?
Well, there's Bill and Parts.
Mark in the
Tracy
service centre.
in
Yeah.
sales.
Yep.
There's Robert in finance as
Yeah,
well.
sure.
He does
Yeah.
insurance at the
And
same
then
time.
Steve washes the cars each morning.
Oh, I love
Steve.
Steve.
Thank you,
Steve.
The good news is that, car dealerships still exist and there is still expansion in the market in different brands. So hopefully these skilled employees can find work in other brands.
Yes.
Well, that's it. interesting. In the press conference, they said every single person has been thought of. I know that they are just words, and they do say these things that huge big redundancy announcements.
Yeah.
But 800 staff, 600 are going to have to find work elsewhere, but 200 are going to stay on, and they'll be manning service centres. So, as I said before, if you have bought a Holden, you are concerned about the support.
Yeah.
There will be plenty of parts, and that you will be looked after, according to Holden. So that's reassuring. Look, I mean, at the same time, you can't blame Holden for this. You know,
we keep coming back to it.
Fantastic. You know, there's a line here in the press release saying the decision is based on global priorities and does not reflect the hard work, talent, and professionalism of the Holden team.
Sure.
Rob Triviani, you know, the suspension guru there, all the teams that work
team
the
of
design.
engineers love
Incredible
this product.
Yeah.
We are going to lose. We are going to lose all that, and it's sad because it's a wealth of knowledge.
But I hope we'll see their magic elsewhere, and we've seen the opportunities that might be around with the likes of Premcar recently, which used to be FPV by another name, in that they're
that was its other name.
Thanks,
it was
James.
FPV.
Keep me on, mate.
Sorry.
Anyway, there are opportunities for engineers in Australia beyond direct OEMs that manufacture cars here. And the likes of the Navara M-Trek Warrior, the guys that
I get you.
that are setting up the Mustang R spec.
Yep.
What can I think of them? Herod.
Yes,
that's right.
Those guys do amazing things, small volume, but create products that Australians love.
And I think we were saying a little while ago that if you take the emotion out of it, and there is a lot of emotion because most Australians have either been in a family that's owned a Holden, everyone knows someone, everyone knows Holden. It's such a part
I've got one right now.
You have a Holden right now.
My first car was one.
There you go.
Mine too.
There you go.
Mine too.
I think we did
Still
an
got it.
episode where we talked about our Holden reminiscences about the Commodore more particularly. That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
When it disappeared. But if you take that emotion out of it, Holden's sales had diminished to the point where it's not going to make a tremendous impact. It will make an impact. I think M4, as you said, they're still a top 10 brand in terms of sales month to month, but they're 10, not 1.
Yeah.
That it's not as big an impact as it may have been some time ago.
And we, because we love the brand and what it means to Australia and what it's meant to Australia for so long, I think maybe we've put more emphasis on its success or failure over the last 5 years, for instance, than probably was due to its credit, because it is just a pinch of salt in the ocean in the world of General Motors.
Sure.
We've got to be realistic about this,
Yeah.
and this is a business decision. There's obviously no malice intended,
No.
but it's just one of those things that they have to make a decision.
Simple business.
That's right. It's like you were saying, in the Australian context, Holden counts for quite a bit still. But in the General Motors context, like I was saying, it's this tiny little buzzing mosquito down at the other side of the world that's losing money. Can't we just swap that and make that go away? Would be, that's very cold. I'm sure that there was more, thought for the people involved. But just from a balance sheet point of view, it has been a bad news story for some time.
Can I ask, could this possibly be a cause of bad management from General Motors and not looking ahead? I mean, you've got a Ford situation where Ford have just gone from strength to strength after Falcon. There'd be a lot of people out there wondering, what's the difference? Holden stopped building their Commodore, Falcon stopped building their Falcon. Why did Falcon go on to strength to strength?
Ford's been lucky to have the Ranger, which is produced elsewhere, which is a car that is suiting, was it the top 2 best-selling cars last year?
Yeah.
The Ranger.
Number 2, I think.
And
Absolutely.
largely
Second best-seller.
private buyers
Yeah.
who are choosing to buy that car.
Yeah.
And the Mustang, which is a result of Ford's One Ford program, which no longer exists, but they've made us a Mustang in right-hand drive from the factory with right-hand drive indicators, all the stuff that we get for a very good price.
That early on was just phenomenal. I never would have imagined that many Mustangs would have been sold, but it was a real saviour.
So every other American car that's come here back in the day has been terrible. Think Taurus, think Probe. The Mustang is a good thing.
I went to the launch of the Taurus.
I love to think
boy.
Probe.
Was that an astrology conference?
So excited to hear him say Probe.
Alpha Centaurus,
But so really what we're saying is the difference between success and failure for Holden has just been a good 4x4 ute and a sports car.
Well,
Maybe.
and that's not to say that the Colorado is a bad 4x4 Ute. It's just
No, well,
that
yeah.
it's never been at the same level. It's always
Yeah.
fallen behind in terms of technology and safety equipment, that sort of stuff.
And the light commercial ute segment is really competitive.
It's so hard to be in there if you're not standing for something, if you're not standing for either the rights to brag at the worksite or the rights to say I'm smarter than you, I bought the Triton,
Yes.
because it's cheaper.
Yep.
Then what's your point of difference? And I think that's where they've struggled. But also we've got to remember that without a Ranger and a Mustang,
Yep.
Ford would be
Yeah.
out the door as well.
They're not selling Focuses. They're not selling Mondeos.
But
they're
then,
not
I mean,
selling-
you can say what if and maybe and blah, blah, but Ford has got those products.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Holden doesn't. And there may have been an alternate scenario where Holden hit on some hot product in an altogether different segment
Yep.
and managed to make the numbers add up. But it just didn't come to pass.
Yeah.
And in total fairness, there have been plenty of products that have kind of contributed to this situation. Thinking Captiva, thinking Barinas, I'm thinking Epica. I'm
Cruise.
thinking,
Yeah, you're right.
Cruise, ultimately. Yeah.
Yes.
Malibu.
Malibu.
I remember in a past life we had that Epica fail headline,
Yeah.
which nobody really loved the Epica, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So there's all sorts of things that have contributed to this.
Yeah.
And we had Corvette coming and may still have Corvette coming. I'm not.
Yeah,
not sure we're
Chesto's
clear
on a
that.
plane to go and drive one very shortly.
Yeah.
Which
But-
may
well,
be a-
we
We'll
hope
be
he
reporting
is.
on
We
that
hope he
today,
is.
so check the site.
Yeah.
Yeah. Look, I guess that was the other question out of that press conference, and that is what does that mean for GM's presence in Australia? Will Corvette still come?
And they've committed to having a new brand, GM Specialty Vehicles.
That's right. Yeah.
Which sounds a lot like GM Special Vehicles
Yes.
or Holden Special
Yep.
Vehicles. But it's unclear what form that will take at this stage.
Because then to have that business at the same time as pretty much closing down your retail network, all as Holden franchises will go, to have a smaller volume specialty business, you need to more or less reassemble that, but in a smaller way around things like the Silverado.
Yep.
Maybe it continues to be Camaro and Corvette and whatever else.
Yep.
Yeah.
I've got to ask though, why would they bother? How are they going to make any money out
Yeah.
of just selling,
Yeah.
a sports scat sort of like,
Well, HSV, for example, if they can sell a Camaro at $100,000, or if they can sell a big Chevy Ute at 150, there's a bit of margin there, and it's not
expensive
like they
to
said,
convert though.
Like they said in the press conference,
And
it's going to be a
calibrate
very
ADR compliant.
small
Sure.
element that they'll be playing in this ecosystem.
And
So
everyone needs to recognise that the Camaro and the Silverado programs are only made possible by Holden's partnership with Walkinshaw.
Yes.
Which is also, HSV
Yes.
by another
Is it
name.
called APV? Australian
it's the
Performance
Ram
Vehicles?
thing.
Oh, is it? I beg your pardon.
Yeah.
ASV.
Yeah,
it's the other job.
ASV, sorry.
And they convert Ram
Yeah.
products within that Walkinshaw building.
So that way, those Silverados and other GM products coming in, it's no skin off GM's nose. They're
No.
just selling some cars,
Yeah.
putting them on a boat, and over they go. Do what you like with them. It's just a small number of incremental sales.
But
Yeah.
Walkinshaw, Camaro, Silverado, etc., will clearly need to find a new way to sell these products because the dealerships are converting. The remaining dealerships are converting to parts and service.
Yeah.
That's right.
That's right.
So there'll be no showroom.
And so in the FAQ on the Holden Facebook site, it says, is Corvette still coming to Australia and New Zealand? The answer is, we will work through this and share information in the coming months.
Wow.
So
Hope so.
it's not a
Yeah.
no and it's not a yes.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
would, I'd be a bit hesitant to be laying down a deposit.
You might have to buy it online.
Yeah. Information they weren't willing to share with us was how much money it was going to cost to bail Holden out. Now they factored that it was going to cost $1 billion to complete the transition process, including the Thailand plant. It's a lot of money. It's obviously more than that. But it'd be interesting to know exactly how much it would have required to keep Holden going.
Yeah.
But they weren't willing to
Well,
comment on that.
Obviously, the cost of shutting the business down in Australia is lower than the cost of making right-hand drive vehicles
Yeah.
for one market.
You're just making them for Australia, New Zealand, and Thailand.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah.
And we've already seen GM pull out of Europe and the UK.
Yep.
So
if theoretically they sell 45,000 cars here,
Yep.
maybe 2,000 or 3,000 in New Zealand, and maybe they might sell 200,000 in Thailand.
yeah.
That's still pretty small bickies.
It's unusual. I mean, I've seen reports saying that Detroit General Motors in Detroit only decided 48 hours ago that the business right-hand drive wasn't a viable business anymore. 48 hours ago.
Yeah.
V8 supercars or supercars was told this morning.
Yeah.
It's all happened, seems quickly, even though it's been happening forever.
Yeah. And if you were in this sort of world and you didn't see the writing on the wall, then it's probably worrying.
Speaking of which, I mean, I think a bit of chest beating is important here
look.
because, Richard, you've looked back for our episode where
Yes.
this bold prediction was made.
Go back to 2018. I think it might be like episode 28. I'll dig that up for
Might
us.
be.
Matt Campbell pointed out he can't see Holden existing in 5 years' time. I then jumped in with, I don't think it's going to be here by the end of the year or something like that. And then JC, qualified it all with, it's just hard to believe that it could exist with sales the way they're going.
Yes.
So don't want to say anything, but we told you so.
We told you so.
I did say in the office the other day that I think this year could be a year of reckoning for a few brands.
Right.
Yeah.
And the way that sales in general are going in the automotive space, they aren't very strong. In fact, they're pretty weak. And maybe we might see a few more brands by the wayside this year.
I think it's a big reminder in terms of how tight margins are in the car
Absolutely.
business, because when we're saying sales are weak, they're down about 8%, year on year.
Yeah.
Okay, that's not to be sneezed at, but it's not 40%.
No.
Yep.
It's 8%. So there are a lot of dealerships really hurting,
Yep.
and shows how thin wholesale margins are on new cars and how much interest rates affect how much you can make out of finance and insurance. And we've got a very low interest rate environment at the moment. It's a real reminder, I suppose.
Sadly,
of all
though,
of that.
it's been low interest rates, but hard to get money.
Correct.
So
yes.
there's
Lending
people getting knocked back
restrictions,
who would otherwise have been able to get the money because there's been so much happening in the banking sector.
Correct.
So it's sort of a perfect storm, but none of this would have changed the decision of General Motors to not make right-hand drive cars.
Well, the good
anymore.
news is that the value of Mal's EH has gone up overnight. He's now that's basically his superannuation now. I think you've got no worries.
That's what certain people in my household might consider it as.
And my dad's one as well. So my dad's got two. So,
two EHs.
Yeah.
Right.
Such a topper, Matt.
It's cashing in.
Oh,
Matt's
right.
He goes EH futures. He's betting on what they're going to be worth
it's
in 5 years' time.
I'll kind of just point out that our Auto Trader website's full of
EH Holdens.
Holden collectible cars now.
Holdens.
Yeah, that's right. Everyone's a collector's car
You
now.
can't get any more.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're not going to find another one.
They're all limited editions.
right.
But the thing is, I guess we're being silly about it a little bit.
Yeah.
There are going to be Holdens in dealerships for the next 12 months-ish,
Yep.
maybe even a little bit longer in
Yes.
some dealerships. So there are going to be Holdens out there
If you
for
want
people to
one,
buy.
you can still buy
Well,
one.
that'd be nice to be a fly on the wall and know how much forward ordering has to be fulfilled, or whether the switch is pulled, tonight. Don't build any more.
Boats on the ocean.
Yeah, how many
when
are
they
on the
still come
water?
into
How many
port.
are coming?
Yeah.
And what price have they been bought at? What price will they be sold at? That's probably part of the pain.
Yeah.
Because it'll be very hard as a Holden salesperson to get out on the showroom floor tomorrow and do deals.
I think we also
$1 billion.
$1 billion.
Yeah.
I think it's also important to remember as well that if it can happen to Holden, it can happen to any company.
Sure.
I mean, Ford, we're talking about how successful they are at the moment, but really it's just the Mustang and the Ranger.
Yeah.
The next generation Ranger might be a dud and they might not get any more Mustangs, and that's it.
Yeah.
So
It's possible.
Yep.
Can I say, on that note, it was only 2006 that we launched the VE Commodore that we developed exclusively, ourselves. $1 billion, the $1 billion baby.
Yep.
And it followed on from the VZ series, which had evolved at that point to include sedan, wagon, SUV, coupe, 3 body styles of ute.
Yes.
With V6 or V8 engines.
Yep.
And the V6 was built here, and all of those bodies were built here.
But also, if the GFC hadn't happened,
Yep.
that export to the US would have been a big deal,
Totally.
and Pontiac wouldn't have died.
Yep.
All kinds of scenarios could have played out. Fact is, GFC did happen,
Yep.
and that threw a big hole in that.
And it's not much Australia could do about that.
No.
Not really.
No.
So Holden, it's not your fault. I blame the Americans. And just the way the world has turned. It's moved the SUVs. I don't think they were on top of the SUV thing for a
Like
while.
sands through the hourglass.
But it's funny though,
so the world turns. Sorry.
mentioning the SUV thing, like there's brands now, two brands in my mind in particular that are still struggling to catch up with the SUV thing. It's Kia and Hyundai, and they are probably 3 SUVs short of their potential in this market in both brands.
Yeah.
A couple of utes too.
Yeah, a couple of utes as well. So that's that just goes to show
Absolutely.
that, even if you've got what is considered the right product,
Yeah.
you've got to be able to sell it,
Yeah, that's right.
and it's got to have some reason for buying it.
But you've also
That's
got
right.
the likes of Jeep trimming their lineup. The Renegade, I want to say, hasn't worked, so it quietly exits the stage. And they're not exactly enjoying healthy sales across any of their brands at this stage.
Yeah.
So
But even the likes of Volkswagen, they've recently lost the Arteon, we understand.
Yep.
But it's not an SUV.
No, but
They're about
Models.
to add SUVs, in fact. So
yeah,
T-Roc.
it's definitely for
This
the
is where-
addition of
That's
two
right.
more.
this is where we're at,
SUVs.
isn't it? Like, this is the market.
Yeah,
So-
I think it's aside from the Holden factor, it is just a reminder as to how delicate a seemingly robust business can actually be in the face of some competitive element that comes out of the clouds or some unexpected thing that pulls the rug out from under you financially.
Yep.
We're always in a fairly delicate state.
There's going to be some angry people. I feel, desperately sad for the people at Holden who have decided to stay. I'm going to stay even after local production ends.
Yep.
And there's people who've dedicated their entire career to this brand as well.
That's right.
We listened to one key one, Christian Aquilina, the acting boss, delivering that press conference before. Very personable announcement.
Yeah, it was heartfelt
Very,
for sure.
very
And we've all worked closely with various members of the Holden team, and in previous lives, I have as well, with different jobs I've had, and I know they're engineering folks, and they're fantastic. We're losing all of that,
Those
all of that
engineering
knowledge.
guys buy their product.
That's
they,
right.
They design, build it, and buy it. They own it. They love it. They're
That's
into it as much as any
And
Holden fan I've ever met.
How would you feel as well? I know there'd be customers and Holden fans and just fans of enthusiasts of cars in general feeling a bit pissed off about this as well.
Yeah.
How's this happened?
Yeah.
How has the biggest Australian brand, one of the most successful brands in the world, gone from being on top to 6 feet under?
Yeah.
How's that happened?
I think it's the diminishing tariff
You
regime.
can listen back
and
to this podcast.
It's a global economic environment
Yeah.
where all of a sudden we're not just Australia, we're a player
Yep.
in this big pool. And once the tariffs were taken down, really good product came in.
Yeah.
The competition firmed up and it just became more difficult
Yeah.
to do business. And once the co-investment, so-called, with local manufacturing was no longer there,
Yeah.
that all fell in a heap and bingo.
And it costs
the
a lot of money
dominoes
to
started
build
to fall.
It costs a lot of money to build cars in Australia.
That's
and,
right.
We enjoy a pretty good
Standard of living.
Standard of living in
Absolutely.
Australia, and would we swap that for the Commodore?
The
I don't
currency
think
didn't
so.
play well, all that. I think a lot of it does sheet
Yeah.
home to the cessation of local manufacturing for Holden. That was a massive broadside to the Holden brand.
Can I get a bit cranky? So those blokes with the Chevy badge on the front of their Marley Elite, I hope you're happy.
Or on the Cruise, or the
Jeez.
Yeah.
V6S.
My favorite Cruise with a Chevy badge. It actually had a Chevy badge, but also an M3 badge. That was amazing.
I saw one on Car Spotters today. It was a Chimera with a Chevy badge on the grill, which I thought was awesome.
Was it a Cavalier?
I have no idea.
I saw a
the Chevrolet Cavalier was a Chimera.
Anyway.
I saw a Chimera with the VL Commodore BT1 police car
That's correct.
livery.
Saw it yellow.
Wow.
One, yeah.
So good.
Wow.
Anyway, look, on that note, that is our special edition. Mel, you got one more?
Can I just add? I wanted
Yep.
to add a bit of a loose timeline of events.
All right, go for it.
So I said before, 2006 was the launch of the VE Commodore on the Zeta platform.
Yeah.
October 2017 was when they ceased manufacture of the Commodore.
Yep.
The Cruise, I think, was 12 months prior. This
Yep.
is all kind of off the top of my head here.
Yep.
December 2019, we saw David Butner leave.
Yes.
Former Toyota boss, Toyota Australia boss, leave. And then I think within that week, the Commodore
Commodore
name was
stopped.
axed,
Yep.
ZB Commodore. And February 17th, 2020, they've announced that the Holden brand
And
will
I
end
think, as
by
we all
2021.
said, it's going to make a really good book.
Yeah.
Once all the details
Movie.
around these things emerge and the truth will out, as it inevitably does over time, it's going to be very interesting to see what happened and who said what and when.
I
it'll be
want
fascinating.
Dave Butner's view.
I know.
Taken to Detroit,
There'll be-
Dave.
there'll be-
We're going to have to get you to close Holden. On my dead body.
Okay, I'm gone. Yeah. All right, so thank you all.
Thank you, guys.
Hope
Thank
that
you.
helped.
Thank
Any
you.
questions, let us know. We'll be doing the podcast as usual this week, so maybe we can cover some of those when we get together again.
Yeah, and keep the conversation going on the social channels.
Absolutely. Till then, see ya.
So that was it. I hope you enjoyed that. We'll be back on January 15. Join the Tools in the Shed then.